I don't understand that why people are not choosing themselves, right? Why people are not choosing love. Because if everybody starts realizing that at the end of the day, everything that happens in our life is partly because you say yes to it, then they cannot be victim. Because you can't be victim when you have perpetuated the very thing that you're interacting with.
Welcome to the Biba Frequency, home to conversations with consciousness. I'm Biba, your host. Hey folks, welcome back to the Biba Frequency podcast. And today I have got Shehnaz Soni. She is an author of a book called The Quantum Being. It's also narrated by her on Audible. It's an incredible book. It's very activating. She talks about light activation. She talks about a world of mirrors. She talks about your inner light. She tells her story, which is remarkable. She says how she went from being in a very difficult religion in Pakistan when she was young to coming to America to end up working for NASA as an engineer on space rockets. And her new mission is helping a woman live on the moon for a week. That's just one aspect of her character. And she says it's not the main one. She's a very activated, multidimensional being. And what I mean by that is she's multifaceted. She has the ability to communicate truths that are multifaceted. So they will go into different parts of your being and activate within you your light body, your energy body, your greater being, your creator being. She's offering quantum sessions online on her website, and she's also offering courses on how to light yourself up, basically. And it's not so much about what she's teaching, it's who she is. Wait until you see the radiance coming from this woman. Not only is she beautiful to look at, she's very, very beautiful, but her eyes are teachers of kindness and love and truth. And so I just want you to sit back and really enjoy this podcast. And I just want to say to Shehnaz, thank you so much for giving me your time. It's precious, I know. And even though there is no time, I send you so much love, and to everybody, until next time, enjoy the show. Well, welcome on board the mothership. Today we have Shehnaz Soni here with us today. Welcome.
Thank you, Biba. I just love the fact that you said the word mothership, right? Like we are on Earth's ship, we are a human craft, right? If we start seeing everything as a ship, one way or the other, and we can navigate our ship, our human craft, and we can choose moment to moment where we want to spend our energy in, then that is ultimately the way we can be actively playing Ready Player One.
Yeah, right. Actively playing and getting
Right.
it, becoming really good at playing this game.
Exactly. Because that's what I think that we need to all, because, people have all these different aspects about whether we are in a simulation game or whether, Earth is a dome or whether Earth is flat. I mean, there's just so many different facets about what is really going on. And I agree that partly because we are not, we don't see transparency between us and our leadership, like leadership that we have right now. We're having a lot of questions. And my thing is that leaders should only stay there as long as we are willing to buy whatever they're selling. Yeah. And we all have to become leader so we can truly understand and discern whom to choose and whom not to choose.
Yeah. And actually discern is the word, isn't it? It's that inner.
Big time.
It's the navigation system that's like, that's the one. It's like, I've watched quite a few of your interviews, and do you know the most fascinating thing? Not just who you are and what you've been through and where you've come to in your own evolution as a being in this lifetime, let alone what you've been doing prior to in that body, but you have got this magnetic energy about you. So when I watch somebody interview you, they're mesmerized by you. Do you ever, sometimes you notice it actually, I'll see you and they're mesmerized. Your eyes smile always, always. It never stops. It's never off. It's always on, beaming, full steam ahead. Let's go. Does that sound about right?
And you know what? It's interesting because I'm very transparent, and truly, if I'm not having a good day, right, and you ask me how are you doing, I'm going to say, yeah, it's been challenging, and I'll categorize the challenges in what aspect of my life is. I'm not going to go into it, but I'm going to give you the highlight because I know that you don't necessarily want to go into it. But that's very interesting that you said that, because one of the things is that when I have to say this is like funny story, because when I came to America, right, to migrate from Pakistan, where it's a very different culture, different language, different everything. And then I'm working as a computer consultant so I can afford my tuition at UC Irvine for my electrical engineering program. And I'm learning about the culture, I'm learning about the language, and I'm working as a computer consultant, not knowing what computer was a day before, right? And I learned very fast, right? Because I learned how to solve problems and stuff. And then people are saying, "What's up?" Right? Because it's majority of them are like young, boys in a field. And I basically in the beginning when they said "What's up," I would look up, right? And then I realized "What's up" means "How are you?" And then when "How are you?" actually when they said, I would tell them, because I was having a very challenging life, being married to a man who was very controlling and, learning the culture and the language and all that. So I would kind of explain them that I'm not good. And then they would say that when somebody says, "How are you?" you're supposed to say "Fine." And I said, "That's lying." And they said, "Well, that's exactly how this works." So then I learned that "What's up" is equal to "How are you?" And the answer is "Fine," because nobody has time.
Wow. Wow. You're a fast learner, so.
I was like, okay, that's what it is. I said that's pretty deceiving from my perspective, but I learned the lingo, right? So it's kind of like that. And but yeah, I appreciate that I exude that. And my goal is that if every one of us exude the light that we have within us as best as we could in every moment, then we're not going to be persuaded or misdirected. Because I think that the majority of the problem that we have created on Earth at this point in our existence is partly because we have accepted whatever we didn't like as that we don't have a power, we don't have a choice.
Well, elaborate on the actual facts of reality about people who think we don't have a choice, coming from your multidimensional self.
Yeah, because see, when we don't make a choice, we're making a choice, right? So there's choices already occurring, right? Discernment is already occurring, whether you actively do it or not. Yeah. And actually, I have crafted a course in the coming week just to help people see that from their perspective, because we are interacting with everything that comes into our existence. You and I are interacting right now through this podcast, and we are going to affect everybody who's going to come in the field to listen to this conversation. So every choice that we make takes us to that next step, to the next step, to the next step. And for example, I made a choice to become a hypnosis under Dolores Cannon, right? I learned a lot. I loved it. And it was just wow. And then right after that, I had an interview with Alex Ferrari, and then he recommended me I need to make my audiobook. And I made my audiobook right after becoming a hypnosis, which is why my voice had that effect on you. Okay. The point is that everything is kind of like adding that layer of gold dust, right? Every action is adding it, and every action is maybe adding it, and some is kind of maybe taking it off, depending on where you're going, right? And from a perspective, it's all about evolution. But what I'm saying is that when you become aware of how your action is creating this big giant landscape for you, then you become more conscious of your choices.
Yeah. And then you have to really be careful of your choices, because if you're submitting or surrendering to something you're not agreeing with, or sometimes people are in marriages they don't want to be in, or jobs they don't want to be in, and then you have to think, well, actually, I need to create something different here because I'm part of this. I'm part of this.
100%. And that is right there. What you just said is what I actually learned, because it's interesting because because I've done a lot of things other than engineering. I've done a lot of different, I'm a health coach, I'm a life coach, I'm a hypnosis. I have many things, the Reiki master, all of that. Like I can attach like tons and tons of labels because I was curious about energy, right? And I wanted to understand it. But the funny thing is that I was even at one point in my life, I just wanted to leave my NASA job and do this full time, right? And I definitely worked towards it. But I started seeing the saturation point in both places. So yeah, like nothing is perfect, right? I started seeing the saturation point even in my life if I would go full-fledged as an energy healer or as a hypnosis, right? Or as a quantum coach. If I go full-fledged, I started seeing that everywhere I go, there you are, right? So it's funny because I paid a really good amount of money to learn like how to make money so you don't have to work for a corporate world. And in the entire process, and you spend like $6,000-7,000, and this guy, he basically directly works under, what's his name? The guy that everybody really likes. He and his wife are running the show when it comes to life coaching. I can't believe I don't know his name. I mean, I don't remember his name, but I mean,
It will come to you.
It will come to me, but I think everybody else knows his name. The point of the story is, so he was directly trained under him, and it was like a big shot. And then he trains us, and in the entire training, and towards the end of the training, because I realized what they're really teaching us, right? So then I asked question. I said, so in order for us to follow our passion, we have to do all these 80% of the time what he was teaching in order to do 20% of the time what you really, really wanted to do. And he said, yeah. And I said, well, if I have to actually do something that I don't want 80% of the time, I might as well stay where I am. Right?
Yeah,
it's already working.
You're the smart cookie.
Because that was another trap. And that's what I've noticed, that every single thing that right now, especially in the world that's being broadcasted on social media or anywhere, and people are seeing them looking like they're extremely successful. If they're that successful, why are they spending so much energy convincing you to buy their program?
Right. Yeah, hungry. You can feel the hungry energy from them.
Oh, big time, right?
It's and like so they're starving.
So basically, that's exactly what it is. So like, you don't just go from one challenge to another. It's almost like you're in a bad marriage and then you have an affair. Mm-hmm. Not a good idea. Mm-hmm. Because whomever you're going to attract while you're broken, he or she's also going to be somebody who also has a lot of baggage that they carry under the rug.
You're fascinating to me, because you're fascinating because of what you do, but also it's your perspective. You have like a kaleidoscope. You have so many perspectives on many things. So it's like multiple, it's multidimensional. It's like multidimensionality in action. So you just don't have one view or two. You're very much aware of a full spectrum of many things. So when you're working with people, not in NASA, but actually energy work, right? I mean, what an offering to have somebody of your caliber as the evolution of your soul, where you are now, Shehnaz, in your own beingness, having done this and having done that. And you said you've so many things you could put on your website, what you've done. But when you're actually with somebody and you offer to them what you're aware of and what you can present to them, that's quite an invaluable thing on the planet right now. Because number one, you're honest and you're transparent, and you're very authentic, and you're highly intuitive, and you're highly intelligent, and you know all these things, and you've no ego. It's like, whoa, well done, you.
Thank you so much. Yes, yeah. And that's why it's interesting, because I have a one-on-one coaching available, 30 minutes, 1 hour. And right after the next level soul interview, everybody wanted to do one-on-one with me, but then it's not going anywhere. And to me, that is my way of, you're right, because when I actually, and most of the time when people come to me, I don't want them to come to me next time, because my goal is that, like, they have a lot, like as soon as they come, it's like quantum coaching becomes quantum healing. And then they already have completely opened up all these new portals of reality to hop on. And they definitely are altered from that point on. So therefore, they should not even be seeking any more guidance for a while. That is my goal, because that's called a huge pattern buster. Because, this whole mindset that people have, that you have a therapist and then you go visit the therapist for the rest of your life, that to me is not the way we need to be.
That's quite off. I mean, listen, it is helpful to some people, but you're not saying I'll see you next week or I'll see you next month. You're like, because you said in one of your interviews, change one thing, change everything. One thing, and that's your version of what quantum is. Change one thing. If you can go in and alter someone's mindset with them, with their soul's permission, then that then gives them all the perspectives that they just weren't seeing through those lenses. They just weren't seeing it because they're blindsided by the noise. Talk a little bit about the noise of all the information that's out there and how to navigate that.
So yeah, I call them distraction. I call them illusion. I mean, everything is illusion, depending on what mindset you think of it. But the noise and the distraction is partly because so you stay busy with something that is not truly your heart desire, right? To me, anything that you're not doing that comes from your heart, that makes you feel alive, is a noise. And when you and the biggest challenge that I'm seeing, and I'm seeing it in all aspect of life, because you're surrounded by people and you see how it is that a lot of people have created a certain Groundhog Day schedule in their life, and they are very much like they are in it to the point where they don't even see that they are truly doing this self-fulfilling prophecy dance with themselves, right, on a regular basis. And they don't see that. And it's so ironic when I see people like they always have the victim mindset. First of all, people who have victim mindset, they truly have bought into the noise. Okay, so that is just the fact. Because like every single thing that happens to us, any one of us can become a victim. I actually have so many reasons to be a victim that I should get a award for not being a victim, by the way. Truly.
I'm going to create one and I'll send it to you, okay?
Thank you. Your words means a lot to me, because that's actually that is the most loving thing you've said. I love that. But no, but you're absolutely right. It's kind of like, that is the thing, right? That like, I don't understand that why people are not choosing themselves, right? Why people are not choosing love. Because if everybody starts realizing that at the end of the day, everything that happens in our life is partly because you say yes to it.
Yeah.
Right? Then they cannot be victim, because you can't be a victim when you have perpetuated the very thing that you're interacting with.
Yeah. It's like look in the mirror.
Exactly. And I'm telling you that it's not, and I'm telling you it's not easy being a human craft, because subconscious runs the show, and that one is making all your decision making more than 90% of the time. So if you really think about it, you can definitely say that, well, my subconscious runs the show. I truly have no control. But the fact of the matter is, you and I both know hypnosis training teaches us that subconscious is reprogrammable. And to some extent, every single person is reprogramming their subconscious, because, every time when you're in a theta wave, right? Every time when you're in a theta wave, you are reprogramming your subconscious. When you turn on the television, within a minute, you are reprogramming your subconscious. So that's a choice.
Yeah.
Right there.
Exactly. And so when we get to reprogram our subconscious mind, how about, so for you, you're functioning very well with your right brain and your left brain. So you're very creative and intuitive, and you're also an engineer in NASA. It's like quite a big deal in this world. This is a huge achievement. It's like, ta-da, you got the award for making it good, So you got to also understand that you're firing on so many cylinders that most people won't even grasp that in lifetimes. Do you know what I'm saying? They're just not going to grasp that, but some will. So you're working with the ones that are, come on, tell me a little bit about how to wake up, how to get the spark going.
Yeah. And it's funny, because right now, even in my current job, it's hilarious, because, I have all these different roles I've done. We are basically working with SpaceX, right, to get the Starship to land on the moon, and, the astronaut to live there for a week. So that part that I work on, and I'm part of the system engineering and integration team, and the leader has like hundreds of people under him, right? And I'm like one of the person under sub team and all that stuff. And the interesting thing is that every time when I see a problem, because I don't worry about losing my job, right? So I actually make sure that I talk to my leader, and they're not able to articulate, because I'm seeing this mega cascading effect of all the wrong, bad decisions that they made, right? And I can see that the train wreck coming. So I write this email where I show them, but I have to do it very humbly because of my position and where I am, right? But I do it in a very soft way and explain them all these tentacles they've created by ignoring all these things, and how to solve it. Right. And every time when I send the email, the guy who's right up, he says, nobody explains to me that, like, he basically gets blinded. Every time when I said, he's like, wow, I can't believe that you said all these things in one email. And he has all these status meetings set up with all of the leaders. Nobody talks to him about anything that makes it so easy for him to understand the problem. So because of that, he understands the problem, of course, but the problem is he is not able to solve it, because in order to solve it, he has to change his mindset. Right? And you have to be really, and that's where the saturation point, I hit the saturation point, right? Because the mindset has to be changed at the leader level, because, as above, so below. I mean, the reason he has attracted all these people who are not giving him the right story is because he has to be truly rolling up his sleeves and wanting to do what needs to be done. But the thing is that because he's so consumed by the Groundhog Day that I mentioned, that he is going from one plane flight to another. Like that's what, when you keep multiplying it at every level, that's what's happening in the whole earth.
Yeah, fractals, right?
Exactly. So I already see all of that, and then I'm thinking that, wow. So that's what we are actually up against right now, is the people like you and me who actually see what things are for. We are. It's good that we can see it, but how do we truly impact it in a way that all of us can live a fulfilling life?
Yeah, exactly. See, when you get to a certain point, it always becomes about that.
Yes.
There's I doesn't exist anymore, because you're like, I'm not worried about losing my job, because you are a walking intention. Like, it's some people set intentions, but you are the intention. The intention is, I'm here. This is what needs to be done. So here's the very interesting thing about that position is he created you in his reality.
That's true.
Right? So he created you to be there. He drawed you in. So in his reality, he's created you to be in his reality. So you should buy him a mirror for Christmas.
No, that is very true. And that is hilarious what you said. And he actually always appreciates me, says, thank you for showing this to me. And I know that he respects me. So there's all of that is very good, right? And he's the reason I am in that, in that place working. Because if he decides that he doesn't want me there, I would lose my job. So he does have that power that's given through the infrastructure. So you're absolutely right. And I think the very fact that he does encourage me means that it's almost like there's a big giant, there's that ray of light, right? That's coming and interfering in his world. And I think that goes back to what you said earlier, right? Like what you heard me say, that you change one thing, you change everything, right? So that is quantum physics. Because see, what quantum physics says is that as soon as you look at the electron, you're affecting the speed, you're affecting the velocity. So that affects how everything ends up showing up in our reality in this physical dimension.
Our observation of it, our engagement with it.
Yeah. Because you observe it, you quantum entangle, and therefore you change it.
I love that. I just love the facts of this universe. There are facts in this universe that no amount of noise can cover up, and they're just magnificent. Like, we get to be in a fractal of this reality, but in actual fact, we're in all of it. So don't worry about all of it. Just be all of it now in this one, in this moment, in this one. Encompass all of your creator being. That's how we change it. So the more you talk, the more I talk, and the more people and we engage. I don't know what is so there's the awakening process or the event horizon where everybody gets access to their multidimensional self, and then you'll remember all of your soul's incarnations, let's say. So, but it's all individual. So the people who are going to get you and resonate with you, where you're going to activate them, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, they're all in your life. And you said on one of your interviews that you just help everybody, whether you're working with them or not. You're just always there activating people. Like, it's just what you are. You don't do anything. It's in your eyes, actually. You've got the most brilliant eyes. They're just brilliant.
Thank you.
Yeah. They just smile. There's so much love. It's love, isn't it? You're moved by love. Love moves things.
That is very true, because the one thing that I'm noticing, because even at NASA, right, I have all these people all over the spectrum, and like, some people are so high up from me, but they would like to talk to me for, because as soon as they learn that I'm in a team, they're like, and I'm like, you're like 3 levels up, and they don't care. They want to talk to me. And generally these people have booked schedule, and I'm supposed to be on their schedule for 30 minutes. And then 2 hours passes by and they have missed all other meetings. And then they realize that they have, but then they don't feel bad about it.
Yeah, so you're strategically positioned there, aren't you? Yes, for the moon landing, but you're strategically, you're like an anti-gravity device, broadcasting and permeating harmonics, solutions.
I think that that's exactly how we're going to bring the heaven on earth, right? Because, it's not going to happen the way because, right, because we need to have all these nodes, because I consider us as nodes, right? That just like all these different sacred places has nodes. So we carry that energy, and when we are planted in a certain place, then we're affecting all the people who needs to be activated, right? Or who are meant to be activated, because partly we're both kind of affecting each other because we're both showing up in each other's reality, right? Because that is where the consensus reality comes into play. And that is how you create a 100 monkey effect, right? You create a ripple effect. You create something that was there before. And that is how you open the door to a whole new way of existing and living.
Exactly. Yeah. And you're right in the throes of it. What's it like working? Because for you, to me, I'd say it's very easy for you because you pick things up. Because I've listened to your book. You narrated your own book, number one, folks. You need to know this. So you've narrated, which I love, right? Because you want the author to narrate their own story. And I was very moved by your book and the beginning of your story. Very, very difficult. Just difficult to listen to. Your journey was, yeah, you definitely get that award. Like, and then you go into love, and then you talk about a recipe, and then you read out the recipe. I was just crying listening to the story because I'm thinking, like, it's so real. It's such a human story. It's such a human story. It's not like you don't identify with suffering. You really get it. And on so many levels. And yet you are way beyond. It's almost like in a very old timeline, victimhood. It's like it's right now. It's like, no, we are able to change it now. All of it in this moment, we can overcome all of it and begin to see what needs to change in this place. You know, it's, yeah, you change, you got to change, you got to make the right choices and start being conscious, like you said, but also everything is possible, isn't it? Everything
is possible, right? I mean, it's interesting, right? So everything is possible. It's like, okay, but how bad you want it, right? And how much you want it. But every time when you are including other people in the recipe, then that's where I would say that then you can't control anyone, and you are not going to be able to control someone's intention. So that's where I basically say that then everything is possible as far as you're concerned, right? So if you like, I wanted to become a hypnosis, yes, I can do that. That is possible because that's on me. But if I want you to become a hypnosis, now that's not possible. I can tell you, Biba, please become hypnosis. I think you will make a good one. But that is not going to be I can only persuade you or maybe tell you. So that's where I think that people need to understand that, right? Because people are like, oh, I come with this bed of roses mentality, and that is not what I'm saying. I'm being very practical because I had to go through life. But what I'm saying is, yes, everything is possible within the confinement of your own journey. Because if you think about it, it's you and the universe, right? And you're interacting with all. However, because you're glued to the very universe that you're affected by, you get to choose which channel to dial in every moment. And that gives you a choice. So from that perspective, everything is possible. If you want to feel sad, because there are times I actually do want to feel sad, and I don't judge myself or anyone for that matter, because I think that to some extent, we are here to experience all these different feelings. And it's good to feel that, because then when you feel it, then you really say that how deep do I want to go, and how far do I want to go, and what is the trigger that's causing it, right? So I can do the root cause corrective action. And then I want to protect myself from having to go through that Groundhog Day again. That to me is, if we all start doing it, even in one aspect of our life, even right now, everybody's listening, if they can just do it in any aspect of their life, they have opened up a whole new way of existing. Because you change one thing, you change everything. And we would not even have the world that we have right now, where the media or even the YouTube channel, they all run based on spreading information that makes people kind of like, it's almost like it has to be juicy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, like tantalizing, like another episode now.
Exactly. Or say sometimes, or even like, it was funny because even on my first interview when it came out, and like they had my picture, and then it said something like, I'm afraid to speak or something. And I was like, what the hell, right? Because I never said that in my interview. So I even sent an email to them, right? I said that, that is definitely not me. I'm not somebody who's like coming from the fear. But then they had their strategy, right? And it did work.
Yeah.
That
Do you
is
know?
the irony that it did work. And what I'm saying is supply versus demand, right? So
Mhm.
the very fact is that the people who listen to me, they only listen to me because they actually saw us, felt like, oh, she's, um, kind of like there was a connection that was established based on the way the cover page and the title was, even though that did not align with me, but it aligned with majority of the people. So you see that actually already says where the masses is, and
Mhm.
where are we and where the masses is, and that gap. How do we converge that? How do we close that? And that requires every single person to show up for themselves.
Yeah, and take responsibility for your inner landscape. As you said, not you can't change everything's possible in here. I can change my sadness and I can change my um if you've got addictions or oppressions, like you can get assistance for those things. But you said, how much do you want it? Because that implies you got to do some work. And that's just the truth of it, right? You got to work on this.
Yeah, and it looks like work only because you've not done it before, but then ultimately it becomes a habit,
Hmm.
right? And that is it. And ultimately, you are actually like, once you start living in that new reality and you feel the freedom that you get by virtue of making the choice that helps you choose the channels, because you are basically giving yourself a better subscription package, right?
Yeah,
So at the end of
exactly.
the day, you have to open that up, because otherwise you're going to be just dialing the one that comes through the cable. And if the weather is bad, then it doesn't even come. I'm like, what the hell, man? When you know that you can access way more channels.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it, though, when you know that?
Yes, and that's exactly now. So that is a great answer to your question. That is it possible, right? And yes, it is possible, because you can open to access more channels for yourself. And the more channel you can access, the more freedom you can have, the more choices you can have, and the more empowered you are, the less victim you become. And then at the end of the day, you start seeing that how you want to exist.
Hmm.
And if everybody starts existing with that frequency and vibration, then it doesn't matter whether it's us from the future or whether it's the star beings. Anybody who's looking at Earth, just think about how Earth would look like, right?
Wow.
Earth ship and all the human crafts in it, like 8 billion, right? And if everybody's vibrating with that light activation vibration that I also teach as a meditation, because my goal is that we are all, oscillating, right? Frequencies at the electron or lepton or quark level, right? So that's pretty much the dance that we all are doing at all the times. But if everybody just starts saying that I'm going to definitely do my best today,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And when I don't have a good experience, then I will look inside and see what can I do to bring better experiences every day, right?
Hmm.
Because that is what I'm saying is the choice.
It's so good because when you have an offering like what you do, you help people basically. You're starting a new course on relationship, right? Yeah. So there first of all, that's your launch pad right there. Well, how do I start there? You start right there on that launch pad, or you get into whatever you're offering, like get into it. People, oh well, I will or I won't. Well, why wouldn't you? There's nothing to lose apart from your misery.
Right, exactly. And the funny thing is that that is the thing, right? That the people who are going to show up for my courses are the one who are ready
Yeah.
to make the choice. The interesting thing is, as soon as you even make a choice to register for the class, you've already opened the door to the new portal of reality. And then there are times people are not able to make it, right? Because in order to even converge with something that you are doing something new, there's always going to be a lot of obstacle created by our own subconscious mind, okay, to some extent, right? And then we will have such a good reason to not show up, and then we'll come up with it. And if you want to stay in a victim, you will say, well, my I had a huge problem and I can't do it, or whatever. I mean, you can come up with so many excuses, but that's what I actually say. Like, when people make a schedule with you, and if they don't show up, then generally my response is, I'm not a priority. And that's okay. Not like, let's just accept the fact that that is the fact.
Hmm.
And it's good to know it. There's no qualm about it. But that's what it boils down to. If somebody's not able to meet up with you, it's because you're not a priority. And as long as you understand that,
Hmm.
and then you decide how many times you want to keep working hard to meet up with them. And if they keep coming up with excuses, and if you're not seeing the pattern, And then if you're feeling miserable about it, then whose fault is it?
Mm.
You see?
Exactly. That's just a very good way of looking at it. And I also feel through my own work that sometimes people are dominated by different frequencies. And so they're being hijacked when they're on the brink of greatness. They're on the brink of aligning with their greatness. Something will show up. You have to be very vigilant of that. Something will show up. As you said, it could be anything. Your cat got run over and you just can't cope.
Exactly. There's so many excuses you can come up with. It's not even funny, right? So that to me is like ultimately, you start seeing that. And if people start connecting the dots, because a lot of people are not realizing that they are constantly coming up with excuses to not do something that they want to do, even for themselves, let alone for somebody else, even for their own self, right? So at the end of the day, I'm like, okay, what is holding you back, right? And that is the answer you have to give. Like, why are you not making yourself a priority so you can do something that you really, really want to do in your heart? And it's going to make you feel good. It's going to make you show up with the higher vibration. It's going to make you do the right thing for you and for all your fellow earthly beings.
But that right there is the activation for them. That right there is actually, it's almost like they've just brushed off the activation button within themselves. They've just allowed you in enough, your light in just enough to brush past, to bring some light in, that maybe in 10 years' time they'll come back, or 5 years, or another life. Do you know what I mean? Like,
right.
I've also learned that sometimes when something doesn't go, I'm thinking, this didn't really I wasn't feeling this one. This was very, it's just, then I realized, no, that's my perception. That's not how you look at this. They got activated exactly how they were meant to. It's not for me to judge that. It's just for me to show up. I just need to show up.
That is great, right? Because there are times we get attached to the imagination that we create for ourselves and for others when they interact with us, right? And that imagination that we create because we see the certain potentiality and we converge on the imagination. But if they don't see that, they don't even have the same intention as we do, then we will never create the imagination that we have in our mind. And then we're going to get disappointed, right? And disheartful and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, that you're right, because we have already done what we were meant to do. It didn't look like the way we thought it needed to be, because that is the fact that every time when you're going to interact with another sentient being, right, then you're going to have to, because they're choosing just like you're choosing. And every choice that they're making is making them converge to whatever that is. So that's why I say that if two people actually can fall in love and they both really want to be together, right? That to me is the most beautiful Vesica Pisces you're making. And that if truly, like if everybody does that, right, then we won't have any affairs in this world, right? Because you're with somebody that you really want to be. Why would you want to be with anybody else? Because that is so powerful and so beautiful.
Your energy so strong that it's warping the screen.
Really? Oh my God.
Oh, yeah. Your energy so strong. And I interviewed a walk-in a couple of years ago and he had to turn his camera off because his energy was just too, the screen cut. But every few seconds it's like it's made of plastic. It warps. It's brilliant. I notice everything, by the way.
Gracious, really?
I've got one of those minds. Tell me about the beings that are seen when the rockets are launching, the crafts. Are they crafts or lights or orbs? What are
So
they?
that's the thing, right? That I personally haven't seen it. I mean, those were seen by other people and they told me about it. And I 100% believed in them because I have always looked at things from a different perspective, right? And I have been open about the fact that we have interference going on because I have felt it in my own life like many times, right? So yeah, so I didn't see the being. However, I was reported about it, and it was not as much of a being as the craft that they knew that wasn't designed by by human. It was piloted by something that was kind of advanced, right? I mean, so I have to use, like, it's good to use the words carefully because it could be that it's our future self, right? It definitely, that would not surprise me because the entire concept of time that we are so stuck on here on a linear fashion is misleading.
Yeah, big time.
It's very misleading. I mean, even Albert Einstein said that, right? And the time is that's why time dilation exists, right? That's why the time difference exists, right? When you go into different planets and all that, when you watch a movie like Interstellar, right? Where the entire time changes differently depending on where you are, right? So all of that truly exists because time is actually a perception. And that's why that's why when athletes are doing something, they actually say that when they're right about to do something that no man has done, about to break a Guinness Book of World Record, then they see everything very slow down. And that's basically time dilation, okay, in a simple term. So right there is what I'm saying, is that it becomes it's it like when you understand that, right, then you don't give all the power to time.
Exactly. Absolutely. And also, when you're aware of time in that way, or no time, you get to see things differently. So for example, I saw a podcast 3 months before it was released. So I saw a podcast, a live conversation, and the guy on the guest had a book, and I wanted to buy the book. And then I saw it 3 months later. So I said to the host, "Did you re-release that?" And he went, "No." And I said, "But I seen it." So that's really made me, I understand about time, but when something like that happens, I'm like, what is actually time? Because so this conversation we've had has already happened. Like it could have been you and your crew flying by the rocket from the future. Like, it could have been you going, lighting it all up from the inside out and the outside in and up and out. It's so, we're not educated on any level to do with this stuff. This is all self-discovery, isn't it? Real self inner work.
And you know what? So that goes back to us not giving ourselves a permission to access more channels. Right? So because, our bandwidth, so it's kind of interesting because I have this whole updated philosophy on the Einstein theory of relativity. And it has to do with the fact that I look at every single variable that he has from a multidimensional way rather than just physical way. Because all the scientists who've created equations, they are looking everything just from a one-dimensional perspective, which is physical. And to me, I look at everything from a multidimensional perspective because otherwise we're not doing a justice to ourselves. So coming back to that understanding, what I'm saying, and then combine that with Kabbalah, right? Kabbalah is a teaching of how to receive light. So when you understand that, it's almost like you're making your vessel, which is your craft, to be able to carry more light, right? So if you can carry more light, then you're able to comprehend things that you may not be able to comprehend before. Because the more light you carry, the more you're expanding your consciousness, you're expanding your inner standing, right? And that helps you connect all these different dots that you may not even see. It's almost like, when you play a video game. So when you're playing a video game, you're walking in the video game, right? And then everything, as soon as you explore a new area, it lights up. Our consciousness is the same way, right? So what you just said about that whole scenario, because it's funny, because that event happened and I had no idea that I would, I mentioned it to Alex as I was talking to him, just because we were having conversation like you and I are having, right? I didn't plan on using that story, but then that story, because it was a little juicy, it got a lot of attention. And then from that point on, a lot of few of the podcasts I had, they all asked me that question. And it became juicy to the point where there was some sort of article written on me speaking about them on a Quora. And my son in Austin, who has a company of his own, he had somebody saying that, look what your mom is saying. And he sent me that message saying, "Mom, is that you?" I'm like, yeah, I'm guilty. And I was like, I can't believe. And then not only that, one of the person whose name I can't mention, whose designation I can't mention because they didn't allow me to, but they are pretty high up in a very famous organization, which I can't name. And they basically contacted me because of that.
Wow.
So the attention that I got, and I even talked to them for 1 hour, and then because they had the right title to do the right thing. So I wanted to make sure that they are doing the right thing. And I learned that they're getting a lot of kicking the can from Congress and other people. So that dance is perpetuated in all part of the world. But the very fact that he and I spoke for 1 hour, we have already affected each other's reality forever.
Forever, exactly. And maybe that was the whole point of it all. Maybe
exactly. So you're right. So isn't it interesting, right? That how like how that just one story, and when you take it all the places that that story opened the door for me to interact with so many different people, including him.
It's perfect. It's perfect. It's beautiful, isn't it?
Isn't it? So that's the
Beautiful.
sacred geometry of flower of life, right? So how
Mm,
it all comes together, because I think that you may not even imagine sometime what's going to happen because our imagination is limited to our consciousness.
right.
So when it gets into the quantum field and when it dances with all these different, sentient being who are also imagining, then what it creates is always going to be beyond our imagination.
And I love that because I'm all about how do I expand my imagination? Or how do I need to stretch it because I'm bored already? It's like, come on, I've been seeing the same things and talking to the same beings. And I'm like, let's go further. There has to be more.
Let's
I'm
mix
creating,
things up. Yes.
you mix it up because what's interesting to me is when certain people see certain things, because not all people, it's just, it depends on your soul and what it's ready to let in, or your light, whatever you're able to perceive. We have assistance, really, is my whole point, even asking you that question. Like we can call in assistance in spiritual realms. Like we can say, I need help now. Some people talk to God, some people talk to angels, some people talk to extraterrestrial beings, some people talk to whatever. But there is assistance for people who feel alone. You are never alone. This is a multidimensional world. It's worlds within worlds within worlds within worlds. And like the flower of life never began and it never ends. So when you were talking, you did an interview with James Pragg, really interesting guy, right?
Yeah, he's definitely my God, and he felt like a burst of energy, right? Like the way he was asking me a question, like I was like, I couldn't even finish the answer, and then he already had this, like it's almost like he's like, let me squeeze as much in as possible, right?
Exactly. He was like a kid in a candy store. It was like, can you just tell me what you think? Because he's a very beautiful, he does some beautiful work, with
Yes.
the psychic stuff. So what would you say about your awareness of other beings? What's your own understanding, as you say, of other beings in our world, or are we in their world? Where are you with all of that?
Oh, definitely. I think that there is a lot of beings around us at all times. The only reason we don't see them is either out of fear or out of necessity.
Mm,
Okay, and I will tell you, like for my own self, okay, I like whenever I have events where I see things that are unexplainable, and it's mostly around the sky, I kind of get scared. Like I do get scared, right? I mean, so I'm a human being and I do have limitations in that sense, right? So I get very uncomfortable when I see something that I can't explain.
mhm,
And then immediately want to go to my comfort place. So what am I going to do? If I'm in my backyard looking up in the sky and I see something that scares me, what am I going to do? I go inside my house because I'm like, oh my God, what did just happen? Like I'm truly, that is the fact. Okay. So, and I'm just being very open here.
mhm,
So at the end of the day, that is the reason we don't really see all the activities that happens around us. I mean, we have limited way of processing information because of our, the way our electromagnetic spectrum field of view is very, very small compared to what's out there, compared to all the things that's out there vibrating at all times with different frequency and different dimension.
mhm.
There's just a lot happening around us, but we're not able to see it all because we are not meant to, because whatever you're focusing on and whatever you want to do, it has to be in alignment for it to show up for you.
You always have the right answer. It's great. It's just, you should have a hotline, questions and answers, which should,
Okay,
yeah.
Biba, let's do it. I'm good with it. Let's create something that where we can actually. I was even thinking to like even a radio show or something where people can ask, because I
Definitely.
actually love that. Because to me, I think it would be so much fun that you have some sort of show where people can come and ask questions, and they can ask questions on anything. They can ask questions on relationship, or they can ask question on how are we going to colonize Mars. I'm good.
You definitely are, because I have two guys I've interviewed, and one of them told me about you, and the other one I said, I sent him an interview, and I said, I'm interviewing this lady tomorrow. Have you heard of her? She's amazing. And he said, you need to ask these questions. And he was like, "Do, do, 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 do." I said, no, 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 listen, listen, listen. You need to interview yourself because I don't even know half of what you're talking about. So, would you be open to doing that?
Yeah, you can think about it. Yeah, because you just got so much to give. And you're permanently like offering your truth. And your truth is really beautiful. And it's really enlightening, proper enlightening. And so I know there's a lot of people that have a lot of questions, and for you going forward, so you're now on a mission to bring a woman onto the moon. Is that right? Wow.
Yeah, so the whole idea is that the women and men are going to walk on the moon this time.
Nice.
Women will go first because, women has not done it, right, based on the history. So they want to, so it's kind of like, and the interesting thing about the whole mission is called Artemis, right? So that has the feminine energy, by the way, because Apollo was the mission that they were doing, Apollo mission is what got us on the moon, right? And now they have come up with the Artemis series to colonize Mars. And they actually are connected with the Greek mythology. And I think Artemis and Apollo were like twin brother and sister, something like that. So, but the point is that isn't it interesting that how, like when you really start looking at the convergence, right? Because this is a classic example of convergence where all the names that they choose of all the crafts, all the ships, right? Everything that we do takes us at a next level as a humanity for evolution. Their names are connected to everything that comes from our past. And that's why like the whole time thing, right? So it's all converging. It's like I mean, that is the thing when I went to visit SpaceX, in California, and I was just blown away with everything about, like he follows all the teaching, ancient teaching.
Wow.
All the teaching that I have taught in Kabbalah to my students, I was like looking at it because even the engine configuration was resembling the flower of life pattern. It's just so amazing that the place where he manufactures rocket, the name of the street is Number One Rocket.
Really?
You see how smart the guy is. So he's like using all of these things to kind of manifest that, right? Because these are the parameters. When you want to manifest something, then you go full blown. And that's what ancient teaching is all about.
Yeah. And actually, it's just a truth, isn't it? As opposed to being ancient or new teaching, it's just a truth. And that truth gets things done in this life. There's reasons for it becoming more clear. So with the ancient teachings, I think there's new teachings coming. They're not here or they're coming. There's something new coming. Have you felt that? Or are you aware of that?
Oh yeah, and the funny thing is that it's not coming. It's basically integrating, but it's integrating through our younger generation. Because our DNA. Remember, our DNA can store more information than any USB. So our DNA already holds that information, and the younger generation that's coming, and I've already seen it in the younger kids. Everybody after Gen X, they're not going through as much bullshit and trauma as we did. I mean. It's like, wow. And not only that, if you really look at the younger generation, they really are more into following their heart's desire. They're not even attached to becoming a doctor or engineer or any of those labels. They're all about like, and a lot of young kids I know, they're young and they fall in love, they marry, and then they're happy. They don't like, it's a very interesting life that they're living.
Yeah, they didn't have to come in through the systems we came in through, though. Do you know what I mean? And you talk about a human craft. Give me a definition of that. A human craft living on the earth.
Right. And I'm sure that you saw it in my book since you're listening to the book, right? So basically in one of my chapter, I explain the difference between the human craft and the spacecraft, because, I work on a spacecraft and I realize the similarity that we have within ourselves. Actually, we are way more complex than any rocket I've worked on. That's what I say, because, we have way more intricate system. I mean, look at our inner eardrum and how they communicate with our vestibular and temporal lobe, and how all that cross section makes us sense of our balance. I mean, that's pretty intricately done, right? So, our system is very intricate, but, we have crystal in our body, just like crystal is in the rocket. We have valves and we have, fluid is going, which is what keeping us, activated. And it's the same goes with the craft. So that's why I use the word craft, because I actually, and it is intended for the ascension mindset, right? And ascension to me doesn't mean that we just fly away like a Superman or Spider-Man, one of those character. It's more like ascension means that you're able to stay, you're from the world but not from it. That's what ascension means. So we all can be ascended while we're still interplaying in this world, right? And ultimately, I do believe that if you, work on your light body and it gets activated to the point where you're no longer needing to sustain your dense reality, then you're not going to sustain it. But it should happen gracefully. I mean, that to me is what ascension is.
Beautiful. I love the fact you talk about our body as a craft, because it really is multidimensional and it's sentient. It's a being. My body was designed for me, and my body responds to every single thought that I have. Every thought, like a craft. Like, I think in my own explorations and what I've with Dr. Greer's work and different things, that crafts don't have dials. You're just connected. It's like Avatar with the it knows where to go. You don't have to tell it because it's in you. It's you're connecting, you're blending your consciousness. So your body is a craft and you have total dominion over it, but it's not dominion. It's just there's love, understanding, and integrity, right? There has to be integrity.
Exactly. And if I give everybody a visual, and if you would ever have somebody who wants to make a movie here, I would give them all the instruction on how to make a movie, right? So like, okay, Iron Man movie, right? And so the imagination I want to give everyone is that when you put on the Iron Man outfit, right? When you put on the human craft outfit, because you become, you converge with the outfit, right? So you're no longer separating the Iron Man outfit with your soul. It's all inclusive. Not only that, you no longer even remember that you're wearing an Iron Man outfit, right? So that convergence makes you, and then everything outside of you, you actually think that it's outside of you. However, it's your projection of your soul. So when you really start seeing how everything is so glued and so sticky and so interconnected, then the only thing that has to take responsibility of this whole movie that you are interplaying in is you.
Hi, me. Again, like the mirrors, because I know you have to go soon because you're busy.
Yeah, I know. But this was such an important thing I wanted to convey to you. And I have to say that, of course, you and I, right, we're mirroring each other.
Mm-hmm.
And we showed up. We showed up the right way. We wanted to interact. And we opened the door for us to walk with more light from here on.
Exactly. Well, you are just a beautiful being, and I so much love for you, because I get you. I just really get you, and you are able to reflect to me something maybe I have forgotten through mirroring. Your light will light me up in a way that nobody else can, and for that I'm always so grateful. In this world that we share, in this world within a world, I'm always so grateful to meet somebody who can mirror a light that's like, wow. It's sacred, actually. It really is, because as you said, there's a lot of non-players out there. There's a lot of people just in Groundhog Day. So I want to thank you for coming on and just giving me some of your time. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you, Biba. It has been my pleasure as well. I just love, and you exude love, and I feel it, and I love it, and I'm happy to play in this playground.
Brilliant. Well, until next time, hopefully we'll get you back when you take the next chapter in your life, whatever that may be, when the woman is on the moon and it's all a brilliant success, because it's already happened, right? She's already there.
That is true, actually. And I don't connect myself to that work. I mean, I do that work, but to me, I'm not just that, right? I'm not just working for NASA and working on going to the moon. I'm actually working on the ascension of myself and my fellow human beings. And that to me actually takes a priority over all the other things.
Beautiful. That's really lovely to hear. Well, I look forward to observing your expansion. I really do. And I want to thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care.
Take care.